We're going to be deploying these data loggers in a small pond in the western part of the state of Connecticut, which is in the U.S. It's in the New England region of the Northeast, and it's located approximately 160 miles west of the onset facility. We're using Google Earth to show you the location, and up here in the upper left-hand corner we have a search bar, and we're going to type in the name of the pond. It's Grannis Pond. We could also put in the latitude and longitude if we wish. And it's in the town of Southington, Connecticut. Even though it's spelled Southington, it is pronounced Southington. So we're going to search, click on the search, and Google Earth will zoom in on Grannis Pond for us, and we can have a look at this monitoring location. Here we are at Grannis Pond. Our orientation is the top of the screen is north, bottom is the south. The pond is fed from a small stream that comes in from the north, and the level is controlled at the south end by a spillway. There's some concern about the health of the fish habitat in this pond. There's a lot of fishing that happens in here. So it's very interesting to the people who live around here to find out what the dissolved oxygen levels are for the health of the fishery. Also, there's concern about pollutant runoff from a landfill that's just to the north of here, hence the use of the conductivity logger as well. The level stays fairly constant during the summer. They keep the spillway at the same level. However, they will lower the level of the pond in the autumn to mitigate any ice problems that the boat docks may have when this freezes over in the winter. You can see here in the northern part of the pond, this is a very shallow area, but you see a lot of vegetation growing. You'll also notice the close proximity of a golf course and also this small college, as well as a lot of residences, both established residences which are here and also some new ones that are being built over in here. We can only assume that this may be a nitrogen-rich area, especially this part close to the golf course, and that's why we have this large amount of vegetation. Our monitoring location is going to be at the end of a boat dock, and we'll zoom in and show you exactly where that is. It is right here, right there in the south part of the pond. The reason we chose this location is for convenience. This is a private residence here, which we have access to. So we know that when we deploy these loggers off this dock, they will be left undisturbed for the length of the deployment. We've traveled to the installation site, and we're preparing to deploy the loggers off the end of this dock in the deepest water accessible. We've made our way down to the boat dock, and we are going to prepare to get our data loggers deployed in the water. This pond is approximately 5 to 6 meters deep at its deepest location. Our deployment site at the end of this dock is approximately 1.5 meters or 5 feet deep. We want to deploy the loggers in a way that minimizes influence from the sun, but we don't want them right on the bottom. So we've decided to mount them approximately 1 meter below the surface. We built a rig to mount these two loggers in the water apart from each other a little. Basically, this mounting technique includes an aluminum bar across the top here, a spreader bar, and we're using shackles to hold the cables that support the loggers. And we also have a single connection point at the top with a shackle on that, and we can so that we can mount this with a single mounting point. And in this image here, we've indicated where that dissolved oxygen sensor is located, just for as a refresher. It's down there at the bottom of that logger. And to show you where that conductivity sensor is in the conductivity logger, it is approximately in that location, aligned with that top hole. We put an extra zip tie through there to hold that logger down in that housing so that that sensor will be lined up with that hole. So that's why that extra zip tie is there. Here is an indication of our 1 meter dimension measured just below the mounting shackle at the top down to the dissolved oxygen logger sensor location. You'll notice there is an offset between where the dissolved oxygen sensor is located on the dissolved oxygen logger and the conductivity sensor on the conductivity logger, approximately 7-inch offset. For this application, that shouldn't influence our data too much. So we're not concerned with that. And here's a photograph we took from the surface. It's a little hard to see because there's a reflection from the surface, but if you look, you can see the orange line coming down to the shackle. That blue tape that we put around that cable indicates the water level. That's at the 1 meter mark. And then we can see the spreader bar, and we can see the 2 data loggers hanging down, the dissolved oxygen on the left and the white protective housing on the right, and they're hanging in the water. You may recall that we configured these loggers to automatically start logging at 12 noon on the 30th of August. We had them mounted and in the water, as you see here, by about 11:30 of that day, 11:30 a.m. So we went off, we had some lunch. We came back to the site at about 1 p.m. And so we know that the loggers had been logging a bit, had a chance to acclimate. And then we pulled out our precision meter, and we put a conductivity probe in there, and we measured the conductivity and temperature of the water, wrote that in our logbook. Here's the meter that we used. It's an Orion 5-star from Thermo Scientific. It can do pH, conductivity, and dissolved oxygen depending on what kind of probes you have. We measure the conductivity, temperature, and wrote down the time those were taken. And again, this was approximately 1 hour after the loggers had been in the water and logged about 4 data points. So we're going to use that data, that information, to post-process our data when we pull the logger out. When we go back to the site, we will bring a dissolved oxygen probe as well, and we will take a measurement of both conductivity and dissolved oxygen prior to pulling that logger out of the water. Always a good idea to use a precision meter to take a measurement after the logger is stabilized at the beginning of your deployment, and then again at the end of your deployment before you pull the logger out of the water to give you the ability to calibrate your data if you need to.